Hi everybody, this is Nikki, and I'm here to do a video that is my personal experience, personal experiments, and not to be used as medical advice. I'm going to attempt, in as basic terms as possible, to kind of explain what it is I'm looking at with my calibration factor. So here's what it is. I use the iSig, and I divide my current blood sugar, which I need a finger stick for, by the iSig in order to produce a calibration factor. What I think this means, and notice I said think because that is what I'm doing, and it's not knowing. I'm using it, but I'm still really unclear as to what it is and why it works, although I'm, gaining momentum in that department. But what I think I have here is I have the iSig, which is the signal within your interstitial fluid. And then I have my blood glucose. Well, from my reading, what I understand is that these are two compartments and that they are side by side. I'm not a science teacher, and in fact, I slept through my 10th grade biology class, so bear with me. I think I have these two compartments basically, and I think that the reason there is a correlation between your BG and your calibration factor, which is what I'm getting from my interstitial fluid, is because they are connected, and in fact they work on a concentration gradient. And how it works is when your blood sugar pushes up, it begins to push over into your interstitial fluid. So there's a delay. They know about the delay, but I don't know that the delay matters in my case, because in fact what I can see inside my number is that yes, my blood sugar is, say, a 120, but it's pushing into my interstitial fluid, so I know that that potential is to rise. That almost sold me, so I don't know. Now on the flip side, and again, this is a particular model they came up with, and I don't know for a fact that they still consider it this way, although it makes perfect sense to me, and that there's a push and pull. So when your blood sugar is rising, it pushes into your interstitial fluid. When the tissue around your interstitial fluid, or around your plasma, I believe, begins the glucose uptake, it begins to pull glucose from your interstitial fluid. So just where there is a delay between your blood glucose and your interstitial fluid, what's reflected there, there's actually a preview in your interstitial fluid to what's going to happen to your blood glucose, which makes using your calibration factor pretty convenient for those periods where your blood sugar is just high. It's been high, and let's say you're worried about, because this happened to me a million times, whether or not you're getting the insulin, and you're just not sure. You don't know, is it a 280 and continuing to rise or whatever. So now I can look at, yes, it's a 280 and my calibration factor is a 7, meaning it's still pushing up. It's still this very full 280. If I test again in 15 minutes, maybe it's a 7.2 or maybe it's a 7.1. It's not that these are big drastic changes. It's that it is continuing to show at that moment what's happening. Maybe at the next one, it's a 6.8. Then I know, albeit slow, that maybe that pull from my interstitial fluid has been initiated. And what is going to happen is that I'm falling. So even though I'm at a 280, and even if my blood glucose continues to rise a little bit, I can see with my calibration factor that in fact the pull has begun. So then at every point I have to consider, have I done everything I can at this point? And I can never forget that I am a diabetic, and that everything I do changes my blood sugar. But it's this really interesting thing, and basically I'm learning how to look at a set as a blood glucose and a calibration factor, and then I have tools. And in general, my tools are, to increase insulin, to do a bolus, to get up and move. It's amazing what getting up and moving does. And I don't even mean exercise. I just mean when I see that calibration factor begin to climb, even at a 120, I know that it's time for me to get up and move because I'm about to have this big push, and I can keep myself on this even line. I was going to tell you guys about my mornings, but I'm pretty happy with that explanation right there. I will say that I now get out of auto mode every morning, except for this morning, which was a disaster. at around 4:30 in the morning when I get up at around 6:15 a.m. Even on the weekends, I set my alarm. If I plan on sleeping late, I set my alarm for about 2 hours in advance to my getting out of bed so that I can let my blood sugar stabilize. And I see that stabilization, if that's a word, every morning. So I know it's working. And then I use my calibration factor to decide, and mornings are fantastic because there's nothing else behind it. I know what it is. It's just my caffeine. And I use that calibration factor to decide whether or not it's okay to start the next cup, whether or not I need to wait, whether or not that insulin on board is enough, whether or not I've maybe had my caffeine too fast and yes, I need to wait and now I actually need to get up, just stand up and go take care of something, walk up the stairs for something. I mean, it's this really interesting thing. And then I came across a study about 2 years ago, and they said it. I can't figure out what their model is, but I'd love to see it because they have the same idea. And what they said is that they think that looking at the plasma glucose next to the interstitial fluid glucose gives the patient a more complete picture, and that's how it feels. And that it can help them to understand what foods and what activity is actually doing and what insulin is doing to their blood sugar. And it's really cool because I can track a blood sugar of, say, a 130, and I can watch that calibration factor rise to a 6 something, and then I can watch it fall again. And all along, my blood sugar is often a 130. But I can see where, let's say I've eaten a sandwich. This happened the other day. I've eaten a sandwich. I can see that the sandwich is winning. Those carbs are pushing it up. And then I can see where the insulin takes over. And it's before I see it in my blood glucose. That's where, as soon as I say that, I'm like, okay, they're going to think I'm crazy. And there's definitely days, a lot of days that I feel that. But that's what it is. And right now I'm learning how to not test 56 times a day. I'm learning how to look at my sensor, understanding the delay, and being able to kind of calibrate in my brain so that I can follow my calibration factor that my sensor is giving me. And it's all working really well. And that's why, and my A1C has gone from a 7.2 to a 6.7. And I even think that my latest trajectory or whatever, my projection is a 5.8. I've never seen a 5.8. So anyway, thank you very much and have a great day.